Hi, good afternoon, everyone. As usual, my name is Opeyemi Shokunbi. Thank you for joining me. Today, I will be sharing my personal journey, my personal story of moving from a regular 9 to 5, working in a multinational, and transiting to being a founder. My name is Opeyemi Shokunbi, presently the CDO at Press One Africa. Press One Africa is in the goal of optimizing business communication, helping you achieve the best value when it comes to moving your engagement with your customer over the voice, messaging, and data service. We've been helping SMEs to be the best in terms of how they manage their business communication. But today I'll be sharing my transition story, my personal story of how I moved from 9 to 5 to being a founder. And I really want it to be interactive. I'd love people to ask questions, and let's learn together. It wasn't something that was, let me say, on in itself very comfortable, but I would take it back. So I was IT operations lead, what you would know as IT manager at Nestle Nigeria, over 5 years, from 2016 to 2022, and it was a very, very engaging role. It was over 6 years. Interesting. It was a very engaging role. It was a role that I was happy to do. But just a bit to backtrack, I joined Nestle in 2009, worked with the organization for over 13 years, served in one of the biggest factories in Central West African region, in a city, a suburb of Lagos called Agbara. I did that for about 4 years plus, approximately 5 years. 2014 January, I transited into another role, moved to Accra. I lived in Accra for over a year. That was also another interesting journey that I can share with us later on. How you move across borders and deliver quality service and be excellent at what you do. Moving across that space gave me the opportunity to then interact with different culture, different people, the Francophone speaking country, some of the Anglophone, but with a different context as to mannerism, culture to work, behavior, even the spoken interaction. When you work on the city of Accra or you talk to people in Accra, it's totally different from when you're in Lagos. Sometimes we cut across as being aggressive, as being loud, as being too forward. So it took a while before I could transit properly. And then after that, I was able to go into some of the Central West African country, obviously over air, mostly for business travel. But for personal travel, I was able to also discover new places, use the road to go from Nigeria to Benin Republic, from Benin Republic to Togo, from Togo then to Accra. I was not able to do Ivory Coast and some other places, but over the year I was able to go to places like Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso, and it was really fun. It was fun. Strangely, I don't speak French, but my wife do, so don't ask me questions in that regard, but all I could do was just to say poulet and poisson. So if I don't eat bread, if I don't eat bread, I'm eating aloko, I'm eating plantain, or I'm eating fish and chicken, poisson and poulet. Poisson, I believe, is fish, and poulet is chicken. So it was fun. From there also, I was able to go to Libreville. Libreville is in Gabon. A very exciting, engaging journey. Different environment, totally different. It's one of the chillest environment I've been to. Now, Francophone regions are always chill. They don't have the work and die nature that we have on this Anglophone side or divide in Nigeria. But it was still surprising. It was still, a bit different. And then after that, I came back to Nigeria. From there, moved from ITC to IT specialist. ITC stands for IT coordinator. From IT coordinator to IT specialist. From IT specialist, I then transited to the IT operations lead. Then, the role of the IT manager for Next in Nigeria. So I was having a good time. I was offering service, obviously. Had some access to training, access to global infrastructure, access to a stable environment. And that was good in itself, but it was not enough. I think that I got to a place in my personal discovery and personal journey that I wanted more. All right, so let me take a pause there. I'd love to also go back and say that I've always been entrepreneurial. I've always been entrepreneurial. So it's not today or when I left Nestle to start up that I started. I've always been interested in finding problem and solving problem. I think I would not want to mix up the story now, so that I stay put on how I transited from Nestle to being a founder. But I would love to come back later on and speak on how do you find problem and how do you move from just sitting around and be comfortable with problems or things not going the way you think they should go, and you are not a solution provider or you are not part of solving the problem to fix what you have identified as an issue. So I was with Nestle obviously for 13 years plus, and I got to that moment that I asked myself, what is next? What can be bigger than what I'm doing? Yes, I'm able to afford my living expense, take care of my family, live a fairly average life. Not, you can't live a luxurious life on that kind of income. But I was able to at least live conveniently, comfortably. But I would say that there were a bit of constraints with the corporate life. Strangely, for me, corporate life is one place where the environment says think outside the box, but in reality there is no box. In reality, there are corporate governance across what is permitted and what is not permitted. I've seen instances where you have a local idea, you want to implement something, even as a leader of the IT team locally, but it cuts across a different division responsible for that innovation, and it has to go from the local to the regional to the zonal to the group level. Unfortunately, in my own opinion, the problem I'm solving were peculiar to Nigeria and not peculiar to a standardized developed economy. So there are some problems that when it gets out there, people will wonder what exactly are we talking about. No one will be able to relate with it because a Nigerian problem should have a Nigerian solution. Yes, the solution should be globally adaptable and scalable and in compliance with all the international rules or laws. Howbeit, it must be a local solution to a local problem. And that's why sometimes you see a lot of things happening in Africa that people are trying to solve, but they are solving it with the perspective of how it was solved in America or Europe or in another clime. And this is where I can say that you have a lot of issue. This is where I believe you will have a lot of challenges, because Nigerian challenges or issues are just very unique, and you must invest into solving it from that perspective. You don't want to be using a solution that you think is tested in another clime or another geography to apply to a problem in Nigeria. No, you have to be creative. So that being said, I figure that room wasn't there to blossom, to be as innovative as the system will say. The system will say be innovative, be creative, be entrepreneurial, be everything. But the system will not permit that kind of context. This is, mind you, a global organization in over 150 countries, running for over 150 years. So I'm not the first employee, I won't be the last, and you would need to understand that it is what it is. So when a system, a corporate entity says, think outside the box, create a new solution, create a new path, it's easily said and done. So I got to is a part of my journey in my career that I feel that the corporate process is not unlocking how much of opportunities I'd love to build and how much of transformation I'd love to bring to technology. And also there is this bit of managing an existing standardized system and process versus creating new infrastructure that will be compelling. Please note, when I joined Nestle back then in 2009, technology was not as advanced. So it wasn't as if the organization or business was at a place where nothing new was needed any longer. No. But what I'm saying is that if you want to buy even a device or an hardware, there is a standard that you must follow. You want to buy a printer, you want to do anything, there is a standard you must follow. Those things are totally different from any perspective. You want to buy a PC, there is a standard globally. You are not going to buy what you think it's okay. In fairness, the global contract back then was with an OEM called HP. Later on, there were other differences. But when I interact with the group level and see some executive, I will see that things were totally different. There were a lot of other things that were happening. But when you are in that context locally, you are limited to what you have access to and what you can influence or control. So that was a first breaker or deal breaker for me. I figured that the corporate life was stifling in such a way. All right. Now, the next thing is, how do you then make that plan? How do you introduce a structure around how you transit or move from something that is functional, working well, to something that is not working well? One of the things I love to say is that you need to be prepared financially. You need to be prepared psychologically. You need to be prepared in every area of your life that is critical and important to you, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, socially. You need to be prepared. You need to plan to see that the leap you're about to take is not going to be something that will affect yourself and your family, especially the standard of living that you have already put across to them. Now, coming back, I will probably take financial later on, if time permits me, to tell you how I was able to navigate that hurdle and what I will advise, which is personal opinion. So please don't take it too hard on yourself. These are just my personal thoughts. All right. Now I moved from a global food giant to building telecoms infrastructure. When you look at the two vertical, you see that they are totally two different things. Solving the food problem and putting technology behind it to unlock that value of making food available to nations is totally different from building the infrastructure or the telecom solution that people then need to have access to technology. One of the things that I would say and I would believe is that is the biggest part of why I felt motivated to move or leave, because you need to understand that there are so many things we do in Africa when we speak about infrastructure, and we have a bit of challenge. So I give an example. Most times in Africa, we are building solution, product, application, and we are forgetting that the infrastructure is not functional. So when you have those beautiful softwares, beautiful apps, you now struggle with the internet, you struggle with the devices, you struggle with all the other things that should happen. And that's why I feel that it was really critical and important to jump into solving this problem of both product and infrastructure, because infrastructure is critical, it's important. And that's why you see that if you move a product in a developed country, say Germany or France, from one part of the country to another part of the country, you can already project how long it's going to take. But if you move a product, whether it's over the land, over the air, whatever means, in Africa, for example, from point A to point B, you need to support it with extra prayer. You need to hope that things will not go wrong. You need to hope that there will not be accidents. You need to hope that there will not be traffic. There will not be all sort of things. But in the developed crime, when you sit right on a Google app and you say, hey, point A is this, point B is this, you already know exactly how long it's going to take. For a journey of, say, 1,000 kilometers in Africa, depending on the climb, the route, and what you are going through, it might take you 2 to 3 days. But when you look at it in a developed climb, this is approximately about 8 hours maximum. So look at 8 hours to 2 to 3 days. So you see that infrastructure has always been a challenge and holding us back in Africa. And it's something that we really need to work on. One of the things also you will see also is that food is very essential, and the way the food value chain is, there are so many players that are already doing good work. The farmers producing the raw materials, the middlemen transforming the raw materials or getting the supply chain to the hands of the manufacturers then adding value, converting it into a finished product, like we say, farm to fork, and then they ship it back to the consumer. It's not that easy when it comes to telecom services. There are a lot of underserved community. There are a lot of, people that cannot be reached, not by their own making or doing, but simply because they don't have that economic heavy power or heavy weight, and then people have ignored them and offer the services to those who can afford to pay and those who are maybe premium customers. So telecoms bring a disruption where there is nothing to say that, if you are rich, you can afford this quality of food. If you are poor, you can afford this quality of food. In telco services, if you are in a region, whether you are rich or you are poor, you have almost the same access. When you're on a telco service, you have almost the same access. There is nothing that is so particular, apart from maybe hardware devices, and then you can have 4G or 5G services. All right, so how did I go from IT to telecoms? One thing you need to understand is that there are similarities. However, if there's anything that has helped most in my journey, I'd love to highlight now, is that you must be very much ready to know that you have to learn quickly. You have to learn first. And also discount how much that you know. Whatever you think you know, when you get into the startup field or you get into the, being a founder, you realize that you have a lot of surprises. In fact, that's when you know that you don't know anything. So you must be very quick to roll up your sleeves and learn quickly. But there are quite some similarities, and I love to really emphasize some of them that give edge. For example, you need to understand that there are things like enterprise infrastructure or systems that exist, whether it's in the food sector or whether in the telco sector. Also, I have scaled, technology across markets. Like I mentioned to you, worked in Nigeria, worked in Ghana, supported over 20 countries as an IT specialist, traveled to Libreville, traveled to Ouagadougou. So I've seen quite a bit as to how do you take its technology and scale it across markets. How do you move from something simple and build on top of it? How do you, build things like business continuity plan? When there is a failure of a process, how does something else kick in? So I've got this edge as to understanding some of the things that I need to do and how I need to do them. I've acquired the skills over 13 years, working with Nestle and moving from one client to the other. This has been an advantage, or this will always be an advantage. Again, I've managed complex IT operations. I've managed budgets of billions of naira. So it wasn't something that I would say is new in itself for me to transit to this new environment. But like I mentioned, there were so many things that I didn't know, because building in a stable, standardized environment is different from building in a new entity where you need to build from ground zero. And now there is a mix of application development, software programming, to infrastructure, cloud security, data privacy, regulatory control that is directly facing you, not where you have armies of lawyers, armies of tax experts, armies of people who are professionals and will take care of that job. So I would say that be conscious of what you have in terms of knowledge gap, and be ready to ensure that you quickly upgrade yourself to then ensure that you are able to meet up to provide the service that you require to offer. All right. So the next thing I'd love to say when you look at my journey is taking a hit and asking a difficult question on impact versus comfort. You need to understand that maintaining excellence in an established environment like Nestle was a no-brainer. It's something that is required of you day in, day out. There's hardly any part of the business that you get to and you will not hear concept like continuous improvement, or you will not hear concept like continuous excellence. There's even a framework called Nestle Continuous Excellence, NCE. And this is what it is. And you will realize that for me to build the infrastructure, the connectivity infrastructure required for Restaurant Africa to support our customers and the entities that will be serving, we would require nothing less. The only difference is that we will now be able to reach much more than you would normally imagine. And there will be no, disenfranchisement in this case. There will not be, say, for example, to unlock disenfranchisement and to also get more volume in food businesses, you hear things like PPP, popularly placed products, where you are sensitizing a commodity. In this case, you realize that whether you are a urban center, a big center, whatever the center, we are able to serve you. Also, we have the likes of the SMEs that players in the industries have neglected because their buying power is not as huge or as large as the large enterprises. So you are able to then face this kind of people, solve the problem for them, and impact them directly, offer services that people would not imagine that you can offer. When we started out, for example, in terms of accessibility, a standardized call center platform, you pay 1,005 monthly. To date, I think some of our customers still pay between 2,500 and 6,000 month on month. That is absurd. When you build this kind of infrastructure for standard organization, your budget is 500,000 and above, and that is to establish the infrastructure. You are not speaking to monthly recurring expenses or cost that comes to those organizations. So imagine that this is then divided by almost 50. Wow. In fact, in some cases, more than 50 divided by 70 something, that's ludicrous. That's about 2,500% savings. 2,500% savings. In some cases, about 5,000% savings for those organizations. So when you look at it, it's as good as you are giving to the SMEs and these organizations value that formerly only the big boys could afford. When you call back in the days, you call your bank, even till now, you call your bank, you hear things like, welcome to G Guarantee Trust Bank, welcome to United Bank of Africa, welcome to this bank, welcome to that bank. Those were the people that could afford it. Until Press One came up and start unlocking this value for small SMEs. Today, you cannot tell if you are a customer of Press One, you have a business phone number, someone calls you, the branding appeal is exactly like those big boys. And before, where you don't understand what will be discussed by your team members, today all the conversation for quality assurance and training, depending on the standard you have in your organization, will be recorded. So you can play back, you can do training, you can do coaching, you can unlock a lot of value for little or very not so substantial fee. And this is a lot of impact. One of the things we have also seen is that with the emergence of artificial intelligence, there is now so much of automation that we can build into how people have their conversation, how they send their messaging, how they respond to their customer, how they do a lot of things. I would not want to bore you with technology, but I would love to say that unlocking this kind of value was very important, was very, very helpful for me to be encouraged to go on this path. And I think it was a very, very let me say, not difficult, very, very exciting decision to make, and then to plan my exit properly out of Nestle. Now, one of the things we need to then look at is that what access to resources, people, funds, and what have you would you have in like a Nestle versus a Press One? I would say that at Nestle, if I needed a solution, I would have budgeted for it the year before, and then I would have, I would just probably engage the procurement team to do to do something like an RFP, and then vendors come in, they bid for it, they bring their proposal, they deliver that service. That's what then happens. Now let's move over to Press One and then think about it quickly. Just pause and think. What do you think will happen at Press One, where we've barely raised up to $1.3 million? We've really raised up to 2 billion naira, and we started raising back then when naira was 400 and something. So I wouldn't say we've even raised up to 1 billion naira. So when you look at it at Press One, if you need it, we build it, and that's actually more tasking but more exciting. At Nestle, you would understand that there will be no need much for building. What would normally happen is what I've described to you. I budget the year before, I need a solution in 2025. I budget for it in 2025. The budget is released in 2025. I create a tender alongside with my value business partnering team from procurement, give them the requirements, they create the RFP, follow the standard by procurement purchasing standards, and then vendors come in, they deliver the solution. But at Press One Africa, it's totally different. You need it, you build it. In fact, when we started out, we had a lot of outsourcing in terms of technology, both value, platform, people, talent from India. But after a while, we realized that with the FX burden, it's practically impossible for us to scale that way. We also realized sometimes the time zone is IST in India. They are 3-4 hours behind Nigeria, while we are business hour, they are closing. While we are they are waking up, we are still sleeping. There are just so much of challenges that we couldn't afford to put our dream, our hope, our future in the hand of someone else. So we built the infrastructure from ground zero. Was it easy? I don't think so. Was it tough? Yes, and yes, and yes, it was tough. But is it worth it? I would say yes, it's worth it. And that's pretty much what I would say is that reality check. Again, one of the things that you would also understand is that as much as possible, when you are a founder, there is a lot that rests on you. So much so that I cannot say on this call. And it was until I became a founder that I resonate really more with when people speak about mental health, wellness, you being excited or happy as to what you do. Because again, you are no longer then responsible for yourself alone. You are now responsible for other people that you have to watch out for and ensure that they are optimal, they are sound, they are happy, they are excited. You have to ensure that the mission and the vision of the organization is passed across, and the culture you desire to build is not, intertwined with something else. You don't bring in someone from somewhere and says that, oh, this is how I think it should be done. No, it's not about how you think it should be done. There is already a culture that has been aligned, and a culture that you should imbibe. So you have to then fight and continue to build on that premise. And you'll find a challenge where you hear people say that culture will eat strategy anytime, any day, or culture will eat strategy for breakfast. This and many more, you will realize that when you think you have the right dreams, aspiration, vision, mission, but the culture and the context within an organization is shitty, is poor, is not appropriately standardized, then you will run into a lot of problems where what you will churn out will not be as excellent as it should be, where the processes will not be defined and standardized, where people will not learn quickly and adapt to ways of doing things, where people also may not even know when they are failing because you did not define that process and put it in place. All right, so there's so much that depends on you as a founder, and you have to do everything that you must do to ensure that the organization continue to be at par with the global competitors and the standard that you want to have in the future. Because it's not about today, it's about that future you are building. You are not going to get better all of a sudden. No, it starts from that cradle that you build it gradually, and every other person that comes in will imbibe the culture, live by the culture, understands the way of working, understand the process, and then follow through on it. All right. One of the things I've seen is that you then also need to battle with a lot of crisis. So when you compare life back at a Nestle that has a standardized way of even managing crisis, where you have a strike crisis committee being set up, as a founder, when you transit, your crisis committee is going to be less than you, your co-founder, and some top leaders in the organization. It's not going to be the one where it is standardized and you have a lot of global, international support, people giving you insight as to what you should do, 3 people, 4 people doing research at the same time. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And one of the things that I believe that people are always afraid of when it comes to transiting to this life or being a founder is then speaking about failure. What if I fail? What if I fail? And I think that maybe by my personality, failure, I believe, should be something we need to embrace and have a different mindset as to how we think about it. And maybe because of our time, I'd love to unpack that interesting concept of discussion around failure, and then how I managed to plan in terms of my finances, and then have that conversation maybe next week or another time. How are you planning? What do you have in mind? You are presently today in an organization, things are stable, or you are thinking of transiting, you are thinking of moving to solve a particular problem in a vertical or a problem that you have passion at. what questions or what concerns you have that you want me to speak to, I'll be happy to address them. I'll be happy to speak about them. One of the things you also need to brace up for is that you need people, both internally and externally, to support your journey. And that's why you must not take for granted the networks that you are building while you're at work. Value people for who they are. Don't treat people because of their position or their role. No, treat people because they are human and deserve to be treated equally. Not that you treat Mr. A better than Mr. B. No, don't inculcate those kind of mindsets, because as a founder, you never can tell who will be the savior when you move into business. People will say that dress as you would love to be addressed. When you get to the marketplace, not everyone dresses that way. Not everyone looks like the CEO that you want to meet. So if you think that you want to look at people, size them up, and treat them the way you think, please jettison those ideas. That will not work. Treat humans as human. Treat people because they are human beings, not because they have one clothes, one shoe, one bag. No, that's not the way to treat people. So you need to build that relationship so that when you are out there, you then have challenges. I would say, and I can say it publicly anytime, any day, when I have challenges that I think I need a legal expert to give insight on, I know legal colleagues or former colleagues that I will call on, and they will give me that insight at no cost, at no charge. They will not say, oh, well, this has to be a consultation fee. No, we already have that camaraderie, we already have that relationship, and we've built it, the rapport over a period of time. So build rapport, build engagement. Don't run away from adding value to people, and it's vice versa. So when people come to you and they ask for your help, don't put money first. Be willing to sit down with them and think through that problem. And that's maybe another thing I'd love to speak about. If you don't have a great problem solving mindset, please stay where you are. If you want to move to this divide or be a founder, you must have a problem mindset. It's not a function of you understand the theory and the practices. No, it's a function of we have a problem to solve and everyone needs to give their bit into it. All right. What are the actionable steps you took when it comes to selling your product or services? All right. I think the first bit is that you need to know your customer. Who are your customers and what do they really want? Because sometimes there's this danger for you as a founder to build from an assumption of the problem, the customer. And when you do that, you realize that you build a product that nobody will fall in love with or nobody will like. That's number one. So know your customers. Number two is that you need to be close to your customers. You need to talk to them more often than you do with your product team or with any member of your team. In talking to them, you'll understand what they believe is the most value-adding part of that product or the service you are rendering. When you have known this, the next step is then to ask yourself that, where are these customers? Because, sometimes we want to sell in a way we have had works, but that's not the reality. The reality is that if you don't find your customers and speak to them where they are, you will find it difficult to sell that product. And that can be very, very frustrating. So we were able to achieve those three things. We did not build from our own, phantom ideas already. We had the MVP, got to the market, validated what customers loved, validated what they genuinely fall in love with. Immediately we validated that, we did a proper ICP. ICP, for anyone who is here but really doesn't understand, this the ideal customer profile. Who exactly are the customers that we want to attract and where we need to engage? We really then understood that some of these customers are people who understand technology and wants to build a process around their business communication. and where we had loads of them at some point in time, is on the digital media. The digital media space has a lot of founders, SMEs, businesses who are struggling with their communication and needed to solve that problem. So we're able to then, do that, or find that space and engage with them. And I think that has always worked. Now for us, it's not a function of do we know what our customers want? No. Now it's not a function of do we know what they want alone? Yes, we know what they really want. We have built that for them. Now we are at the bit where we are scaling it and doing much more. Thank you very much. That's true. Amazon is one place where they are customer obsessed, and that's one of the things that worked also for us. Did we solve all the problem for all our customers? I would boldly say no, we couldn't, and that's one of the danger with being a founder also, where you have so many people who are pulling you in different directions. You need to be very careful so that you don't spread your resources thin, and at the end of the day, you are not able to win the market. Because to build a product market fit, or let your product be product market fit according to what there are different theories. The marketers have their theory, the sales folks have their theory, the worst one is the VC, they have their theory. You need to be careful to ensure that you find a vertical that will fall in love with it, willing to buy it and stay with you for a long time. Some people will opine that you don't need so many people. You need just a few to be crazy, and then they will speak about the product in such a way that others would definitely fall in love with it. I think next week I would speak a bit more on some of the things, how we coped with failure. Now, what challenges do you face, especially if you have a B2B businesses to end user? All right, so I would say that the number one challenge you face is breaking into those organizations. Immediately you have your ICP and you understand the organizations you want to sell to, be very, very specific. For example, on our enterprise side, we have said to ourselves to say that if a business is not doing 20 billion and above in revenue, we don't want to sell to them. Be very specific as to the way you are qualifying a customer. Now, immediately you have qualified them in that way, you then need to ask yourself that who can be a sponsor for you within those organizations. They might be external or internal, but as much as possible, you need to find someone that will, take you in. Now, what I've seen and people have used is that people will do things like introduction. Introduce you to the organization, and then they want you to take the conversation further. I would say that is good, is nice. If you have it, take it, but it will not work most of the time. I would say that over 95% of my experience, introductions have failed. You need a sponsor that can go beyond introduction to understand or to find the right people you need to speak to in the organization. Secondly, you then need to know the two levels. Number one, the main end user and the decision maker for that product and service. Now, if you know the end user and the decision maker, maybe the line manager of that end user, if you have that insight, you can go a level further and also understand the line manager or the person that sits above the decision maker. Because sometimes there is this conflicting challenge with B2B products in terms of what is the KPI and the problem that you are solving. Sometimes there are conflicting KPIs. What the line manager is looking for is different from what the end user is using for. And in this case, you need to understand that the pain sits with that end user. So the line manager in most open organizations will want the decision of that buying to be both ways. He will make the decision and the end users give their input, because you are solving for the KPIs of both parties. So one of the things I would say is that ask direct questions to say that, what is your main problem? I know that this is the problem in perspective that I have said I've solved. You are my ICD, but what is your problem? You get the problem of the end user, you get the problem of that a decision maker, and then you bridge it. You find a way to bridge it and ensure that you are solving the problem for the two of them. Else, one party can scatter the deal for you. Aside that, also, I think most times people think that pricing will get them to close a deal. I don't focus on pricing. Personally, I would focus on value. What value am I unlocking? What value am I getting? The only place where I'm careful with pricing is if there are alternate solutions that will do almost the same thing or a little bit close to what I am going to offer, and they will cut it. Their pricing will be way better than mine. Then I might be a bit careful. But if I've got edge above almost every other competitor that would offer that service, I will focus on the value. I will not jump on anything that has to do with cost. If cost is the reason why I would lose a deal, I don't think it's then a pain point for that organization. That's my personal opinion. But I'm happy to see through what it is, understanding the budget of the organization and how they want us to deliver that value. But I focus more on the value, focus more on understanding the main pain points, solve those pain points, and then we'll move on to the other factors or discussions. But I don't see pricing being let me say a deal breaker. Now, one of the things you also then need to understand is that sometimes you also need to get like evangelists. When I mean evangelists, I mean people who have sold products to those enterprises and understand their context and their structure. Because when you go to enterprises, especially large enterprises, there are politics. There are people whose voice counts than the other. So if you have context and you understand those, it will help you close deals and it will close it quickly and better. Business to end users, if you say B2C, I think B2C is a bit very straightforward. Understand the channels where you can, scale the product and push it out to them. Make noise, make it loud, let them, be there. And when you are loud or they are there, please show up, engage, answers all the questions, provide all the peace of mind leverage or concerns that people have, and don't waste that leverage that you have when you connect with the audience. Oh, thank you, Mary. I hope I've been able to answer your questions. If you think I've not done well, I'm happy also to take the feedback, and then I would think through some of them, because I am giving answers on what has worked and what has not worked for me. But thank you very much for engaging me. Thank you, Ochuko, for joining. And I see digital transformation, so you are my oga. You just bring money and let us solve part of the problem you're having. Oh, awesome! Thank you, Mary, for giving me a good rating. And I think if you also see other techniques that I can use, also please drop it for me, share it. If you don't want to share it publicly because people are paying you to collect those kind of wisdom, please drop it in my inbox. I'm always learning. I'm always leveraging my networks, my relationship to close deals. As I am now, right now, that's one of the biggest problem I have seen for an entrepreneur. And I'm always finding new ways to solve that problem. So if you think there are other ways that I can leverage, please let me know. And if you also think there's room for us to collaborate, you've already got some customers, please let's talk. I'm happy to leverage that bit also from you. All right, thank you very, very much, Mary. It's been very engaging. I think this Your questions has been one of my most engaging sessions for over the 10 sessions I've had. And I've always had, very interesting audience, but not as engaging as this one. And I love the questions. They are practical, they are time bound and time sensitive. They are things that most times as entrepreneurs we don't focus on from the beginning. We focus more on the selling. And if there's anything I've learned now is that don't wait until everything is sorted before you start selling. Start selling from as soon as the MVP is good to go. In some cases, I've even sold some product before that had no MVP. So don't be afraid to sell, because what I've seen is that in terms of building and putting, together technology is not a complex thing. The most complex thing is to then get that value to the face and the hands of a buying customer, not demo. Demo is also good, though. I'm not saying it's not good, but not demo. Buying customers that will pay for it because you are solving a pain point that is germane and that is critical and important for them. So if I build differently, I can say that instead of getting to the market in 5 months, 6 months for some products, sometimes by month 3, I'm already selling, I'm already speaking, I'm already, making it loud. And I'm going to build a lot of waiting lists, build a lot of customers who see the demo, love it, and then I'm going to tell them, give me 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we go live. In some cases, not in, I don't know here in Africa, but in some cases in developed country, I've even heard of people, paying because they just saw the demo, they loved it, and they know that it's going to be ready in 3 to 4 weeks. So who knows if we also can use that approach here, and it's going to work and give us that same result. All right. So we are trying to wrap up the conversation. If you are just joining, I'm speaking about my journey transiting from the number one global food business in the world as IT manager. The role was called operations lead in Nigeria, to my role now as a technical co-founder in a startup that is telco facing. And my goal is to inspire people. Do I have recommendations for improving selling skills? Selling skills. I would say that the first thing is that know what you are selling. That's the number one most important bit. Know what you are selling. Number 2 is that when you get people over the line, you engage people to then have demos with you. Make your demos like your life depend on it. Do it in such a way that you have a process, a standardized process for that demo. Whether it is a pre-sales technical team or it is a sales team, let there be a documentation as to exactly how you arrived at that point and the goal of that demo. Not everything in the goal of the demo will be achieved, but let it be stated so that it can drive everyone that is reading it to know that this is the end goal, this is what we want to achieve. When you have done that, the next thing is then to ensure that you are refining that process over and over to improve it, so that you are not saying that, hey, our demo is locked down, is the best. No, you are refining it from time to time. Another thing I would then encourage is that have a visually compelling deck that is not too verbose or text filled or wordy, because we don't have so much attention span these days. So don't have a deck that when people open they are bored. No, have a deck that when people open, it's straight to the point, they read the point, they get the point, they move on. I think that will give a good point, or a good pointer. Again, I would say that try to build rapport beyond whoever you are talking to. For example, what I mean by that is that there are times that enterprise deal sales deal takes between 6 to 9 months. What are the things you can do to shorten that cycle? Do you have people in the organizations that you know? Do you have people that know someone? When you can get those interaction or engagement, I think it can shorten that that cycle. One of the things I would also encourage is that this is a personal opinion for me. Don't have a cycle that you get to the 9th month before you discover that they don't actually have the budget, or you are talking to a wrong department. Try hard to ensure that everyone that needs to be part of making decision for that deal to close, they are put in view maximum the second or the third conversation. Don't go into the meeting and not understand the people in that meeting. If they are just technical sided conversation, you need to know if the decision maker is the CTO or the CEO. If the decision maker is the CEO, your first conversation, if the CEO is not there, no problem. The second and third conversation, if the CEO is not there, then there's an issue. So you need to find a way to ensure that you get the team to bring him in, so that you will not need to, sort it out to technical, go back to executive or business, then come back again, they refer you. No, you bring everyone together. By bringing everyone together, it gives you that impetus to deal with technical and business at the same time, and they are not able to run rings around you by deflecting you. Oh, executive will say it is technical that will make decision, technical will say it is executive. No, you bring everyone together. When you bring everyone together, it simplifies that journey, makes it easier. I think it will make selling also very easier. Now, one of the things I will also say is that be very, very I don't know how to use this word now. I don't want to use the wrong word, but I think I would say that be quite aggressive with your selling. I think that the culture we have in the startup is too chill. And when we are chill, we just don't get the results as it is. I would say that build that aura of being aggressive, being pushy, not with your external team. That's not where my concern lies, but your internal team. So that one way or the other, you are able to push quickly and knock off the deals that will not work and focus on the ones that will work. If you have, say, 20 prospective deals in the pipeline and 18 of them are not going to work, and you are pushing it 4 months, 6 months down the line, I think you are wasting your company resources. You are wasting your time. You are wasting all the things you should do. Try to make sure that month 1, month 2, you've trimmed it, and if all you have is just to focus on 2 for the rest of the month, I think it's more effective, and it will allow you to go back and refine how you get better leads. Also, I would say that no matter how simple it is, have a CRM system that documents your processes, whether you are doing well or you are not doing well, what has been done, who has engaged who. People will say that have a standard CRM platform or system. From my tech background, I would say that because all you need is visibility, just have a system. If it's an Excel sheet that will work for you and that's your system, it's okay. If it's Google Sheet, it's okay. Just ensure that there is visibility. It's not like one person is the only one that have access to it. And in some cases, you can build it into sheets so that there's control to what people can edit and what people can do. I think those are the things that will help to improve the skills. And thankfully, enter every meeting with a lot of good smile. Smile sells a lot more than people imagine. Make your the customer very comfortable. I would say something that is weird, and you don't have to follow me. But one of my goals when I go into meetings sometimes is that I want to solve the problem. So I have seen myself. Please don't take it in bad light, but that's my opinion. I've seen myself in a way that because I'm focused on solving a problem for my customer, my end goal is not for the customer to buy my product. My end goal is for the customer to be satisfied. So I've seen myself tell a customer sometimes that you don't need this product. This is what you need. And do this. And yes, it might look like it's a loss of sale, but I think at the right time, when that customer genuinely needs a product, or when that customer gets to a place that they need something else that we have in our kitty or in our product catalog, they will surely come back and they would buy it. So it's not like I have to force it down their throats. That should be an hard sale. No, I don't think so. All right. Ochuko is asking a very critical question. How did you navigate early stage funding, especially pre-seed? Ochuko, my brother, I wish I had brought my co-founder to answer this question for you. One of the things I don't like most on this journey is fundraising. I feel it's a distraction. I feel that please discount whatever you hear from me, but it's my personal opinion. I feel that people prefer more of lies than truth, and I would rather stay on the path of integrity. I would rather make sure that what I tell you is what it is. If you don't like it, there's nothing I can do. But one of the advantage I think we have is that we had good friends and network when we're starting out. So the first thing we did was F&F, family and friends, and we were able to raise substantial amount of money. Was it enough for us to launch? No, definitely not. We had a VC also coming to invest in us. So build a relationship where people can refer you. My co-founder is quite known in the industry. He's been an entrepreneur all his life. While I was at Nestle, working for Nestle, drinking Milo and Nescafe, he was on the streets, building technology, building value, especially in the space of fintech. So he was known. So by the time we're raising, we're not newbies. Cumulative experience between the two of us is over 30 years. So when you look at 30 years talking to you, showing you a deck, I think you will see things a bit differently. So Ochuko, I would say that think about F&F. Some of your friends or your co-founders' friends that have good income, working in multinationals, working in oil and gas, they don't know what to do with their money. Encourage them to invest. That's number one. Number two is look for people who can then refer you to established VCs. People who say there's no money, there's winter, there's this. It's not true. There's money. People are looking for the right ideas to invest in. So Ochuko, people are looking for right ideas to invest in. So there's money, no doubt about it. Also look for an accelerator. So after the VC, we went into an accelerator. We are Techstar, funded of Techstar backed. So that accelerator was helpful. In that accelerator, we met loads of coaches, mentors, established angels. So we had some money also from there, and we got customers. The most important part with accelerators is it also helps with customers, because you have to struggle investment and customers. And strangely, people don't know the best part is to have customer money, not investors' money. Customers' money is the best thing. It's the best thing. You need loads of it. If you have more of it, your life will be better off. My co-founder is Mayowa Okigbenle. Mayowa Okigbenle used to be a co-founder with Shola Akinlade. Shola Akinlade is a co-founder and CEO of Paystack. So they built a product called Picurio back in the days. It was translated into, I think, 7 or 8 languages. They sold it majorly in South American part of our world, and it was really quite successful. Before they then transited and moved on to something else. So I try to do this weekly, Mary, just for your information. And it's been helpful for me to share some of my experience. You can go back and watch some of them. I've spoken about handling difficult conversation or difficult conversations with customers, with your partners, with your employees or peers in the office. All right. Thank you guys for the questions. I think the questions has even been more helpful for me to open up than where I started from with the theories of comparing Nestle and Press One. But I think what I would speak about next week is I'll do a part 2. I'll speak about the failure. I'll speak about things I will do differently. I'll speak on identifying the people that can help you on your journey, because please be mindful, you cannot do this alone. You need people. And when I mean people, you need people that can really, really move the needle, people that will go far and above to help you achieve your goals and your objective. You need those people. You can't do it all by yourself. And I think it is very, very, important. There are days also when things will not go well. Maybe I'll speak about that, from the failure angle. What do you do? Who are the people you can call? There are people that will never understand what you are doing, because being a founder is more or less like you're asking for trouble. You are doing, in quotes, more than yourself, but it's difficult. And when we succeed, which I hope all of us will, then people might say things like, he's self-made, he's lucky, is this, is that. But please note, this is a painful path to pass through. So when you decide to pass through this painful path, when you pass through this journey, don't hold back in terms of how you are feeling. So don't feel bad about things that are not working, or things that are going bad. It's just part of that process. Some days will be very, 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 very bad. Some days will be very, very, very bad. You'll be asking yourself, why am I here? So I'll take time to speak more about that next week. I don't want to take too much of our time. It's meant to be just 1 hour call. I've used quite a bit more. I need to be respectful of that. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Ochuko. You guys engaged much more than I've ever had on the call, and I think it gives me chills. It gives me a good vibe that this is worth it. And I hope next week also, if you have time, you can catch part of it. I'll strictly look at where I've failed, what I can do differently, my 2 cents for entrepreneurs, especially those that may not make sense. For people who are building in developed country, I would say that your problems are totally different from people building in Africa. You might have more access to fund, the trust system is there, the data is there. There are a lot of things that you have access to. But in Africa, we just need to find a lot of things ourselves. All right. So thank you everyone who has joined. In the next 2-3 minutes, I'd love to wind down and end the session. But if you are just joining, thank you also for joining. My name is Opeyemi Shokombe. I've spoken about my personal story. You can catch up, after the session. To be there for a while. I'm not sure I've taken anyone down. It's going to be there, so you can catch up and then learn 1 or 2 things on, how can you prepare, how can you transit from your job right now to being a founder. I think one of the things I remember now is how did we identify the problem? So I would also try to see if I can touch on that, how we identify the problem, the failures, the lessons from the failure, and how to respond to bad days or days that things didn't go your way, All right. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dosin. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Chuko. This has been awesomely engaging. Awesomely engaging. And after the session, I'll definitely respond to all the comments with some, details, or just to even acknowledge and say thank you. And then we'll take it further from there. All right. See you next week. And thank you for being part of this wonderful live session that I had today.